Hello, Internet. Daniel with Driving and Dragons here with Mr. Lucas today for your quick, under 5-minute Game Master tip. See you on the other side. So today's tip is a pretty simple one. Restrict your players. Now, I know that there's going to be a lot of GMs out there who want to just raise all holy hell about this. There's a lot of players out there who will raise all holy hell about this, especially in the 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons crowd. They will cry to the high heavens about don't restrict player agency. Players should be able to do whatever the hell they want to. There should not be any restrictions on your players. Just let them pick whatever they want to. If it's in the book, they can do it. Blah, blah, blah. That is the biggest load of crap that you will ever hear. That is terrible Game Master advice. The best thing you can do is restrict your players for a number of reasons. So, let's talk about reason number one. Reason number one to restrict your players. They're new. If you have new players, there is a standing rule at my table, regardless of what game system we're playing. If you are a new player, your character in your first campaign must be restricted to the core rulebook. So, for instance, if I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons, you have to pick a race and a class out of the player's handbook and only use material that's in the player's handbook. Why am I saying that? Because you need to learn the basics of the game. You need to learn the basics of how things work. And you need to learn how the game functions and what the different roles actually mean. So, for instance, you're playing a rogue. There are thousands of rogue archetypes out there, classes that are rogue-like. But until you understand what a rogue is, you probably shouldn't be branching out into these more flavorful classes. Oh, you're restricting that new player's freedom. You're restricting their imagination. You might run them off because they want to be a half Kitsune, half dragon, Gensai, super psychic rogue, and you're crapping all over their Animu fantasy. No, I am making sure that they have a grasp on the game. And then also, as the game master, you personally, you have to have more knowledge of the way a character's class and abilities work when you're dealing with a new player. And if they're playing some crazy exotic class, that's going to be something that you have to learn along with them. That's one thing if they're a well-seasoned player who can kind of understand how things works, who can come to you with something that's a little bit more off the beaten path to discuss how it needs to work. It's a lot different when they barely understand how turn order and combat works, and they're trying to do some really crazy class or multi-class or class race combination from 4 different books, and you as the GM have to understand how all this stuff works together, and it just becomes a massive headache. It drains your fun, drains everybody else at the table's fun, because it's almost impossible for that character to be ready to play. So that's one reason. Another reason to restrict your players is for your game world, okay? Yes, the players have the agency to do what they want to do with their players, but you have to create that game world for them to play in. I want to be a half Kitsune, half dragon. Well, there's no Kitsune at all in my world, so you can't be half Kitsune. Well, I want to be this, that, or the other. Well, that's not how things work in the world that I've put this game together. We're not going to alter the entirety of the campaign because somebody specifically wants to have some kind of class or character. Now, you have to balance this with speaking to your players ahead of time, finding out exactly what they want to do, and finding out what's going to make them have a fun time. But once you started putting the pieces together, you say, hey, we're going to play a modern era, we're playing cyberpunk, everybody's going to be dirt poor from the slums in the same booster gang. You don't want somebody showing up with a corpo that's got, money and power and all kinds of other stuff. It's like you don't fit what we're doing in this campaign. So place restrictions on your players. You can restrict their, from restricting gear to restricting the type of items that you're going to allow to restricting the classes and abilities that are going to be allowed. Just make sure that it all serves a better experience at your table. But you can't be afraid to restrict your players just because you think you might get a little bit of blowback because somebody wants to be the special snowflake. That's the tip for the day.